One more thing. I think there's already one name we can cross off the Mavs wish list for GM. Welcome. You're still locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt. It's the one more thing, and we're talking about Mavs GM search. Maybe the biggest decision of the offseason, even more so than the draft, is the GM situation. So we're going to talk about an article from Christian Clark of The Athletic. He mentions 5 names and a couple of source things where he talks about Dumont's thinking. He talks about the interest between a GM candidate and another. And so we'll talk about 5 of these names and get into it. And my first one is the first name that Christian mentions in this piece, and that's Bob Myers. And he says there is still skepticism that he'd leave California and also resign his post with Harris Splitzer Sports, league sources told The Athletic. The Bob Myers thing is that's just been like pie in the sky, wishful thinking for everyone. And this is now multiple reports that have said that, hey, it would take a lot for him to leave. And he doesn't look like he wants to leave California, or that if the Bob Myers things happened, it means that Patch Dumont dug so deep into the couch cushions, pulled out everything possible.
Whoa, JD.
Pulled the lever on the slot machine and just let it all out and just paid him like an insane amount of money. And I think that's the only way Bob Myers comes over. And he's already getting an insane amount of money from this for this Harris Splitzer Sports Group that owns the Commanders. They own a Premier League team. They own the Sixers. They own like a whole bunch of other teams.
I don't know who they own. So
I think it's Crystal Palace is the Premier League team that they own. But yeah, we just have heard this multiple times, and maybe it's him just buffing the request from the Mavericks, and he's like, hey, up that price. Like, hey, I'm gonna tell another outlet that it'd take a lot to for me to leave here, but I'm crossing him off. Maybe it's in pencil.
You're crossing him off? No. I don't want to say like he's my like betting choice, but
you can do that. You can disagree with me.
He's just out of all yeah. He's the one that I never leave off of, that I'm like, when I look at all the names mentioned, that I still go back to, and I'm like, it feels like I would not be shocked at all because of the connections. He has the relationship with Rick Welts back to Golden State. Welts, to my knowledge, is a big fan of his. You look at, he's had the relationship with Dumont. Dumont consulted with him, with Bob Myers on some different decisions, like threw out some different things at him to get his advice on things. Like, there is relationship there with ownership, Welts, and everything. It just wouldn't shock me at all if we get something in the next month and it's like the Dallas Mavericks are making Bob Myers the highest paid executive in professional sports. And, it's something crazy like that. And we're watching a Bob Myers introductory press conference before the draft or something.
Can I tell you what I like? That to me sounds like you remember when like who's the coach the Pistons hired that they made like the highest paid coach? Was it Monty Williams?
Yeah, it was Monty. Don't come after my guy.
I don't need to. I just said Monty Williams, and you knew exactly that it meant a negative thing.
No, you said highest paid coach, and I was like, Monty.
And like they had to convince him to come out of like retirement or whatever, and like, hey, we'll ante up for you. Like, I just feel like that doesn't work in the NBA with jobs like this. You have to be so committed to it and be obsessed with it and be obsessed with winning, and not just be like, hey man, this is too good of a payday to pass up. And I just don't think that's a good approach.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what. I'm not going to act like I know what's a bad or good approach to it. I want to believe of like, hey, if somebody believes in you that much to give you a crazy amount of money, that you would take it wanting to like, hey, this is a new challenge in a way. Like, I'm not in Golden State anymore, but if I could craft something, we're getting a top pick to go with Cooper Flagg, and I can help craft another championship like team in a different city. That would be some legacy stuff there. But yeah, I'm not crossing him off. I don't want to say he's like my favorite, but I'm just not. I just refuse to cross him off until it's fully done. The Masai thing.
Pencil.
All right, the Masai thing. So Christian Clark mentions Masai, and
yeah.
I think the thing with Masai is, he gives that quote to, I think it was Ramona at ESPN, of how he still wants that. He still desires that another NBA championship. And that, if we're that might appeal to you more. To your point about Bob Myers, is he going to be like motivated? It feels like Masai is definitely motivated.
Yeah, that there is a legit motivation there. He's had a track record of doing that with the Raptors, where he traded for Kawhi Leonard and had that 2019 team that made it all the way and won. He does have an interest. He's right now he has an ownership stake in the the Toronto Tempo, the WNBA team, and so he's starting all that up. That one's an interesting one to me. That feels like the wild card guy that hasn't been in the NBA for a little bit could come back, and he definitely would have the Christian mentions this in the piece, which I found notable. One of the things we know about Patrick Dumont is he wanted somebody to be the public facing voice and the guy that does the press conferences. And Masai would have no problem doing that. Neither would Bob Myers, but
he would not. This is something Nico sucked at, and it was,
to put it lightly.
Yeah. So
avoided.
Tried to do secret ones behind closed doors. That was invite only, and you couldn't record it, at first. But yeah, Masai would definitely do. I think a lot of these names on the list that Christian, mentions in his piece would obviously Bob Myers. I mean, he spent time with ESPN in studio and on set and stuff. So he can speak in front of a mic, and Masai. And who's the next name you want to talk about on that list?
My betting favorite right now, Tim Connolly.
All right.
The Mavs have, legitimate interest in Connolly, league sources say, and that's from The Athletic as well. He's helped build Denver, Minnesota, and the bill for Rudy Gobert is starting to come up for the Timberwolves.
Oh, that's a cold move.
This may be his time. Maybe his time. But there's also been reports that he has interest, or that he would potentially leave. That people around the league think that he could be leaving Minnesota after the end of this season. This would be my bet, and that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's him, or Christian and Mark Stein have reported on record now that Dallas has interest in him and wants to go to where, like, the Masai thing. I think Masai's just kind of been like thrown out. He has
interest in the NBA.
Yeah, he's interested.
He wants to
but I haven't seen anything on record of like Mavericks interested in Masai or.
Right.
There's a lot of like connections with Bob Myers. Like the Connolly one is like legit reported on. Stein, Christian Clark, maybe somebody else, of like, hey, there is significant interest from Dallas's part. You have the Chris Haynes, clip that's like, hey, here's 3 guys that they'd be interested in. One of them's willing to listen.
Yeah, it's Sam Presti, Brad Stevens, and Tim Connolly. You're like, oh, well, one of those is not as connected to his team as the other 2 is.
The Brad Stevens is becoming a meme now because every opening that happens, it's like Texas Roadhouse down the road fires their manager, and it's like, well, we got to make Brad say no. And because it's like the Bulls open, seen somebody, the reports about that, like they got to make Brad Stevens say no to the Bulls. I'm like, I feel like that's kind of easy. And North Carolina had it with their head coach.
Yeah.
Which, shout out Mike Malone.
Say, you like Mike Malone now?
Dude, I don't even know what to think of that.
You can't call him Mike. It's Michael.
Yes,
very
Michael.
Specific thing.
As
a UNC guy, you got to know that now.
It could crash and burn, or it could be awesome. But anyway,
that feels like the Hubert Davis tenure too. Went to the championship and then crashed and burned.
But Hubert was just such a nice dude, and he was like in the UNC family and all this stuff. Michael Malone,
you and your nice coaches, you love Monty Williams, Hubert Davis,
dude. Roy Williams. I wish Roy Williams was my grandpa. I never really had a grandpa in my life, so I wish Roy Williams could be my grandpa.
If you're out there and you want to be Isaac's grandpa, just let us know. Text Isaac at 214.
But no, listen, if they got Tim Connolly, that would be awesome. Like I think he's one of those top names when you're looking at top executives in the league that are running front offices and stuff. And you talk to people who actually like know what makes a good executive. Cause I'm not going to act like I know all the ins and outs of that. Cause I think a lot of people just naturally go to, well, let me pull up their trades.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like, well,
that's what I did.
There's so much that determines what makes a good executive and not. but Tim Connolly's name always gets mentioned in that, even, when in Denver days and then Minnesota and what he's, craft up in Minnesota around Anthony Edwards and stuff. So if they were able to lure Connolly to Dallas, I think it would be huge win for Dallas, like a massive win.
Coming up, there's one name that was mentioned a lot at the beginning of this whole process, Dennis Lindsey, but there's something specific about him that means the Mavericks may not choose him. We'll talk about what that is and more coming up. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by BetterHelp. Financial struggles and financial issues, it can overwhelm you. You have so many different things that it could affect: your sleep, your relationships, your overall mental health. It builds up over time, and you know that you can't solve money problems overnight unless you just don't really solve them. They just become different problems if you solve them through the lottery or something like that. The reality is, struggling with money doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it just means you haven't had the right kind of support. That support doesn't change whether you have money or you don't have money. You've got to be able to talk through things and the stress that comes with trying to figure all that stuff out. You may just need somebody to talk to. Therapy isn't just about financial advice, but it's working through the stress, the anxiety, and the emotions that come with it. With over 30,000 licensed therapists, more than 6 million people served, BetterHelp makes it easier to get matched and start focusing on what you need. When life feels overwhelming, therapy can help. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. Oh,
Nick, let me tell you about our friends over at FanDuel.
Please
the NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters, even defensive possessions. Because do you know off the top of your head what the odds are for Victor Wembanyama, assuming he plays 20 minutes in the game on Friday night? His odds for defensive player of the year on FanDuel right now?
Oh, it's got to be minus 5,000.
Minus 20,000.
20,000 now?
20,000. Let's go. Chet is number 2 at plus 1,500.
Minus 20,000, by the way. You have to bet $20,000 to win $100.
Yeah. So go get that Benji. And right now on FanDuel, it's giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. And here's what you like about it. You could bet just $5.
Con is back to the favorite, minus 130, Cooper Flagg plus 110.
Whoa. We need to up our game.
You can go make some money now.
We need more boxes from Flagg's camp here. And if you have the FanDuel app, it makes it easier to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Also brought to you by PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made easy. All right, I'm going to go through a lineup right now. You just have to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, Isaac. Make it quick and easy to just jump right in. Let's go. This is the Pistons versus the Hornets, 2 teams we enjoy watching. As much as we dogged Connolly, love watching that team. LaMelo Ball, 21 points, more or less. More. Brandon Miller, 19.5 points, more or less. More. Cade Cunningham, coming back from injury. More or less, 17.5. Less. Yeah, give me less on that. Connolly, 17.5 points. Less on that one. You can do all that and go check out, see what is available for you. They have all kinds of different things. If I put down just those 3 players and the more or less that Isaac just said, I put down $20, I could win 120 if they win. Also, if you use the code LOCKEDONNBA, you get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So if I play just $5 in that one lineup, I can win $30 on that one, and then I can also get $50 extra if you use the code LOCKEDONNBA at PrizePicks with the app or PrizePicks.com. Shut it down! Let's go home! It's one more thing. We're talking about the Mavs GM search. It's maybe the most important decision the Mavs have to make the entire offseason, including the draft pick, including free agency, including all kinds of different things. We're talking about a piece from The Athletic from Christian Clark. Bob Myers is mentioned. Masai Ujiri is mentioned. Tim Connolly is mentioned. And then he mentions Dennis Lindsey, a native Texan, played at Baylor. He's a well-respected executive. He's second in command to Trajan Langdon right now with the Pistons. And he was the general manager with the Utah Jazz and kind of built that Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell type team. They had a good record there. And he was with the Mavericks when they went to the finals. He helped Nico Harrison in that front office make the moves that they did to get them to the finals. And so but there's one thing that he mentioned in this piece that I found interesting. It said on Dennis Lindsey, multiple league sources have said that Mark Cuban's backing of Dennis Lindsey could hurt
Lindsey's case, because now there's this weird feud with the owners between Mark Cuban, minority owner still, and Patrick Dumont, where Mark Cuban has said recently, we've talked about on the show, that he regrets who he sold the Mavericks to. And that is a big slap in the face, I think, to Patrick Dumont. And so now, and Mark Cuban has said he regrets selling the Mavericks in general and all kinds of different things. And so now I think that relationship is probably strained. I'm going to make a big guess that they're not super buddies
Probably
right now.
accurate.
And so now Mark Cuban saying, all right, well, pick Dennis Lindsey. That hurts Dennis Lindsey's case, according to league sources. That is wild.
Dennis is like, please, can you not say
yeah,
that?
if he wants this job, he's got to be hoping that Cuban just like shuts his mouth. And good luck, Dennis.
Yeah.
Mark,
the
come
Lindsey,
on Locked On Mavs. Again.
Here's the thing of like why they're taking this long, which is still just fascinating to me that it's going on this long. But it just shows you that they're waiting to like fully make their pitch on somebody that's going to be in the playoffs. And because if they go through all of this and just like hand it over to Finley or Riccardi, it's like, okay, well, I guess you already had that in the bag and they've been scouting and stuff already. Or like you go through all of this and then you hand it to Masai like 2 weeks before the draft and you're like, well, crap, what was the point? Like,
to let him to let Masai help with the expansion draft for the Toronto Tempo. They got Marina Mabry. They got some
but obviously
on the perimeter.
Obviously, Dennis Lindsey's with the Pistons. We'll see how long they make it in the playoffs. Tim Connolly, same way with that. So I'll be fascinated to see if we get any type of like rumors whenever one of those two teams gets put out of the playoffs, or if they win it all.
That name I wouldn't be upset about. He's been in the NBA a while, a proven track record, and that's the other thing that the Mavs want. We know that they want two things. They want a mouthpiece and they want a proven track record, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that they want in this spot. And I think both Tim Connolly and Dennis Lindsey have that, and obviously Bob Myers and Masai have that and all that.
You do have the thought in the back of your mind too of, hey, it was always gonna be Riccardi or Finley, and they're throwing out some big names that they know they probably can't get, and then, hey, it's gonna be one of these guys. I will say this, and I know this isn't popular with some fans, and I know this wasn't in Christian Clark's piece. I still wouldn't count out Jason Kidd for this job.
Chris Mannix just said that again today and reported that you wouldn't.
Oh, did he?
You wouldn't count out Jason Kidd.
Yeah, there's still, it's just, there's a lot of connections with him and Dumont, and there's, yeah.
Who do you want right now? You, Isaac Harris.
Not Kidd. Sorry, I should have said that.
Not the question I asked, but
can we cut that out? I mean, Bob Myers would be who I want. I would be very happy with Tim Connolly. If they kept somebody in-house, it'd be Riccardi. I think Riccardi has had the most experience out of that. I know Fan has a lot of experience too, but I really value Riccardi's like scouting and like all of that experience that he spent time with in Brooklyn, and the fact that Riccardi's like from the area, he gets Dallas and stuff too, but also has worked his way up from like an intern and worked so many different positions in the front office too. I think that's really cool. And at some point, you gotta, like, if they don't get one of the top names, which I want them to do, get somebody that's been there, done that. The Nico experience kind of just like burned me with that, but. If you do go with somebody up and coming, like, you got to get an up and come, like every team gets an up and coming guy at some point. And I think Riccardi would be a great option if they don't get one of the top names.
Yeah. I either want Tim Connolly or a name that I haven't heard of, like you want somebody that's like, hey, they went and got this guy for the Hawks. That's just, incredible. And people have been waiting for, in the league, have been waiting for when he's going to get his opportunity, and he's in here to prove it. And maybe Riccardi is the Mavs version of that guy, the guy that has been grinding, has worked up from the bottom, and is now here to prove, like, all right, I've worked every angle of a front office in the NBA, and it's my time, right? Like all these guys that we just kind of mentioned. At some point, they were that.
Yeah.
I don't want Jason Kidd either. You don't have to cut it out. I'll say it too.
Well, I just wonder too if, like, I think a lot of people has just been focused on the GM part of like who could be in that position for the Mavs next year, and I just don't think it's I don't think it's 100% given or even like a 90% given that Jason Kidd's going to be the head coach next year either.
No, yeah, especially with a new GM. A new GM may want to choose their own coach, right?
There's a bunch of different paths with that. Like Jason Kidd could pursue something else outside the Mavs. Jason Kidd could try to be the, he wants to be the GM of the Mavs. So it's like if Jason Kidd gets the job, they'll have to get a new head coach. If they bring in another GM and he doesn't want Jason Kidd to be like,
would you take Jason Kidd as the GM if he brings back Sweeney as the head coach?
I mean, I guess there's worse options. I like Sweeney, but I wouldn't do that. No.
If Jason Kidd leaves for Portland, the Mavs get Sweeney back as head coach, and then Riccardi as the GM. Is that the shortest like GM coach combo in the history of the league?
You said Riccardi and Sweeney?
Yeah.
Well, that's mean.
Well, it's true. Sean Marks, the GM of the Nets, is like 6'11".
Yeah, and he's horrible.
Maybe it's better to be closer. Maybe it's better to be closer to the ground.
Dude, job security, I don't understand it. I don't understand how he still has a job.
It's like they taking the fall going tanking, and they're like, hey, we got to play this through. Like you can't make moves here. We've got to be able to see this whole process through to the end and see what we can get on the other side of it. It's the process thing. It's the same thing Hinkie did.
It's tough, man. I just shout out to him, man. He keeps on.
I think I would have got rid of him after that Nets draft this past season. I don't know, like
all the guards and Danny Wolf.
Danny Wolf is a guard. Danny Wolf is a guard in power forward clothing.
Danny Wolf might be the best player out of that draft.
You might
for him.
He has the best highs right now.
I just want them to decide on this sooner rather than later.
The lottery is in 3 weeks, a month?
The worst thing that I heard was when Stein did the whole report of like, well, they might not hire somebody before the draft. Like, what?
Like, please.
That would scare the crap. I mean, these are huge decisions.
The one thing I will say, the one more thing.
Ding.
If they do wait until then, at the very least, I know Finley and Riccardi have the Mavs best interest at heart, long term, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that through the Anthony Davis trade. They didn't double down and be like, all right, we're coming back. This was Nico's vision. We want to see it out. No, they made the shrewd move, moved on from it, got the financial flexibility, got some assets, and I think that they would still make good moves in the draft. And so that would be frustrating if the Mavs didn't have the permanent guy in play, permanent person in place as the GM by the draft, but at least they have two people that I know want the Mavs to do well.
They take Nate Ament, and then
because Michael Finley is Dallas. Michael Finley is Dallas. You hear that quote?
It's kind of a wild quote.
Yeah, it's a wild quote from Michael Finley. Shout out to him, man. He's vying for the job. He's like, I am Dallas.
I mean, I am Dallas.
You think he's all of Dallas? He's Uptown, and he's Deep Ellum, and he's Addison, and he's...
Man, that's just... Yeah, it's such a stretch. But
do you want to be Dallas?
I really liked you when you were for the Mavs, but it's like, what's the equivalent of somebody saying I was Dallas?
Imagine Riccardi gets it. Imagine Riccardi gets it, and his mom just leaks all of his photos of him with Mavs gear on when he was a kid.
And it's not photoshopped.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to AI any of those. Riccardi for sure, a real Mavs fan.
Oh man, the GM stuff. It's gonna take years off my life. I can't wait too much.
Just pick one. Just pick one. Let us talk about it, Mavs, please. Dumont, if you listen to this show, if you're sitting in your office right now,
the non-cynical side of me says, "Oh, they got this all planned out already."
Connolly said yes, and they're waiting until some
they're getting Connolly. Season's gonna end, and then bam, they're gonna work out something and whatever. Sucky thing about that is if you get Connolly, do you have to trade
to get him?
Because he has 1
year left on it. Yeah,
I don't know if he's had these opt-outs in his deal with Minnesota before. I don't know if this summer is an opt-out or not, and if it's not, then they're probably going to have to do some other trade. And I was like, oh god.
Well, so Minnesota has this new ownership group, and some people have made the case Connolly's got a really good relationship with this ownership group. What if he just leverages that and it's like, hey guys, we have a good relationship. You just let me do this.
Dude, I mean, I said on our pod not too long ago, but like they own some other, teams and stuff, A-Rod and Lauren stuff. They gave one of their other like head like decision makers in a front office a 10-year deal because they apparently they love continuity. Like they want the continuity. So if they do that with Connolly and Connolly's like, hey, Dallas is willing to, and then he just cashes it. Like it wouldn't shock you at all, right? If like 2 weeks after the season, it's like Tim Connolly signs a new massive deal with Minnesota, and you're like,
has that ever happened in the history of the Mavericks? A team used them for leverage to go get a deal.
It would be probably the first time.
It's like, I feel like we talk about that like once in off season. You
like,
on
cool.
this show, you and I have talked about somebody using the Mavs for leverage, a free agent, a coach, a GM, something.
Darren Williams, yes, you're going to Brooklyn. We know.
Jay Crowder,
Nick Batum, we know.
Yeah, Nick Batum. Oh, Mike Conley and Hassan Whiteside, the biggest example of that.
Chandler Parsons tried, and Houston's like, all right, cool, let's go.
All right, we'll have the Mavs post-game show after the Spurs game on this feed, wherever you're listening, watching this. Man, I hope they don't win the game.
2 more games, baby.
Oh my gosh,
Two more.
Go check it out. We also have the Everydayers Club, links in the description for that ad-free episodes and the Discord. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.